Alrighty, how's everyone doing today? Welcome to my channel. This is an educational channel. We check into great theories and concepts and discoveries that are fantastic, things that could revolutionize your life in terms of your quest for better spiritual, mental, and physical health. But unfortunately, these are things that have been suppressed, and so you may not have heard of them, and even if you have, you might only be dimly aware. So we're gonna get into those things here on this channel. There's a lot of videos in the backlog. Might want to surf around and see if anything catches your fancy. This is a feature that we have that is called the Q-tip of the spear, and this is for some of those Q folks out there, diggers and anons, truthers, sovereign patriots from around the world who may pay attention to that 17th letter, conspiracy theorists. And the tip of the spear is the ones that I listen to, their podcasts, which I consider them to be at the tip of the spear. And this is just kind of a recap of what I've heard over the last day or two. And things seem very promising. Um, I think that things are over, and I'm urging people to redeploy themselves to move into the next phase, that victory is assured against the globalists. But then we get to the golden age, moving into the golden age, and the what you call implementation stage, putting, being in control, and putting, now, instead of criticizing from outside, you are now putting your ideas into practice, um, for them to be criticized by others. And so you better have your act together. And I don't believe that's the case. I believe there's a lot more red pilling that needs to be done before there's any type of entry into a golden age. And so that's the next phase. And that will be, not quite so combative, and maybe not quite as stressful, but it's going to be like more of an individual thing. Everybody's going to have to do it, and uh, or be left behind. And I do feel that this is a great time to be alive. This is, the first time that the humans have had the opportunity to get their planet, or whatever this is. And we've been victims of a conspiracy since day one. I'm not sure what these what I love them, but I was listening to a podcast today, and they were like, first one of them said that they thought the Cold War was like the longest psyop in history, and then he was counteracted by another who said, no, it's the heliocentric Earth, and that goes back to, and for some reason he said 1604, which is not the right date for sure. Um, but apparently he was talking about the Copernican uh, revolution that was initiated by Copernicus. Uh, and he died in 1543. So, and that is the date that his book was published, even though he had written it many years earlier, but didn't really release it to the public because he knew he was going to get burnt at the stake if he did. And so He just kind of sat on it until he was on his deathbed. He told his friends about it. Anyway, that is far from the longest psyop either. A much, much longer psyop is what you call Christianity. Christianity is a Roman psychological operation. The Romans ran it as a propaganda campaign against the Jews. The Jews had been a big headache on the Romans for over a century, ever since Rome colonized or occupied uh, Palestine, Judea, and the Jews were super high maintenance. They required constant policing for the Romans, constant revolts, uprisings, insurrections, disturbances, terrorist attacks, insurrections, and eventually an entirely full blown war in 66 AD that lasted for 7 years. And it took a bunch of the Roman legions to put it down. But put it down they did. And a couple of the generals for that war eventually became the new emperors. And at that point, they decided that they didn't want the Jews to be rising up again. And so they implemented the Jesus psyop. And that was to create a fictional character who was a Jewish Messiah. And not like the Jewish Messiah predicted in some of the Old Testament books, who was a military commander who was going to help them overthrow the Romans, but instead a Jewish Messiah who was a Prince of Peace and who believed in rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, walking the extra mile for the Roman soldiers, carrying their pack, and turning the other cheek to oppression, while at the same time castigating the Jews for selling small animals at the outskirts of the temple and overturning the tables of the Jewish money changers and telling his Jewish followers to abandon their families, um, and calling all the Pharisees hypocrites for following their rituals, meaning that the Romans were attempting to wipe out the Jewish culture and rituals and ways of life. And so that has been going on for 1,950 years now, a little bit more than that. So that's a much longer psyop, but it's just one that you're not aware of. Um, and even longer psyop, possibly, is the psyop of the Old Testament God, Yahweh, Elohim. That Yahweh is some type of God. Somehow, I'm not exactly sure of the history of this, but somehow Yahweh Elohim had ended up being translated as God, when Yahweh Elohim is anything but a God. Yahweh Elohim is a dude who is big and powerful, technologically advanced, pretty smart, but really messed up. He's got every personality disorder in the book: OCD, jealous, zealous, indecisive, arbitrary and capricious, hardcore addiction to smoking animal fat, which isn't so bad because he kicked his addiction to smoking human fat. So he's stepped down, taken one step down, um, and just very um, much of a tyrant, not a god, but I think we picked up our idea of God, that this is this meddlesome God that is always interfering in stuff and who is, you know, um, looking over at you all the time and, is threatening you with damnation to hell. That's another psyop is Satan, the uh, all powerful, kind of supernatural Satan. That's not a product of the Old Testament. It's a product of the New Testament. So that's another 2000, 1950-year-old psyop. So there's quite a few other ones that, like I said, we need to redeploy ourselves, stop paying so much attention to this info war, which is already over. They're just mopping it up right now, and get yourself redeployed in continuing to red pill yourself on deeper issues, issues that go back further and further in time. Because certainly, if you think that the Cold War was a longest psyop, and or the heliocentric world is a longest psyop, then you haven't dug deep enough. Because, like I said, I just came up with three others that are much, much deeper, and I could come up with a few others as well. So, that should do it for the Q-tip of the spear for today. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and contribute. And we will return tomorrow with another episode. There'll be a couple more videos today in our other features. And so stay tuned for Wild Tangent channel. And thanks for tuning in today. Have a great day.